Ryan, I'm going to be a new online seller. I just registered my business. I know what product I'm going to start pushing out. What are some of the biggest mistakes that I could make when it comes to sales tax?
Yep, that's a great question. I would say first and foremost, ignoring it. It's a very information is readily available on this stuff, and e-commerce sellers, remote sellers, they talk. Ignoring it is going to be a problem. And the reason it's going to become a problem is because what I have experienced is that remote sellers' margins are very slim, right? You know, you buy a product for $30, you sell it for 35. I mean, maybe that's not the case for everybody, but generally speaking, that's the case. If you add in sales tax to that, your margins become even thinner. And that is what happens when you ignore it. Because basically what you're taking your gross sales plus the shipping in some circumstances that you don't even collect, you just collect and remit almost like a pass-through item. And then you get assessed sales tax on your gross sales plus the shipping, you know, obviously less any refunds or discounts, but generally speaking, that's how it works. And so if you don't collect that tax from the customer, guess who's paying that tax? You are. The retailer is paying that tax. So if you ignore this issue, it will eat into your profits. That is the first thing that it's going to do. And the second thing that it's going to do is it's going to hinder your ability to be compliant if you ignore it, right? I mean, if you just ignore sales tax, you're not going to be able to file your returns. You're not going to be able to, you know, charge sales tax, collect it from your customer. So I would say number one is ignoring it. And then obviously number two is deciding when to become compliant. And so what I mean by this is exactly what we talked about previously with economic nexus. You need to be aware of where you have economic nexus. If you are not aware of where you have economic nexus, you have no idea where you need to register, where you need to become compliant. So that's a very important step. And generally it starts with an economic nexus study. You know, this can, you know, simply be done by going into your Shopify account and, you know, ballparking, you know, how many sales did I have here? How many transactions did I ship into this state? The problem with doing it yourself is that each state has separate rules. So you may have one state that says, okay, last calendar year. Well, that's pretty easy. You have another state that says rolling 12-month period. Well, that's going to be a little more complicated, but, you know, still doable. And then you get states that say, okay, well, taxable versus non-taxable sales. What's taxable? What's non-taxable? Is it included in the threshold? Does that shipment count towards my transaction count for the threshold, for threshold purposes? So it does get complex. But yes, I would say number two is just being compliant in general.